8.2 is linear equations in two variables. Equations in two variables. An equation that contains two different variables. Solution of an equation in two variables. A solution of an equation in x and y is an ordered pair, and I would start here, an ordered pair, x comma y, that produces a true statement when the values of x and y are substituted into the equation. So start where it says an ordered pair that produces a true statement when x and y are placed into the equation. Please feel free to pause this at any time if I go too fast with the vocabulary or with any part of this lesson. Graph of an equation in two variables. The graph of an equation in two variables is the set of points, start there, the set of points in a coordinate plane that represent all solutions of the equation. Linear equation. The word linear means line, so it's an equation that makes a line. An equation whose graph is a line. That's all you need to write. An equation whose graph is a line. That's what linear means, line. Function form. Function form is an equation solved for y. Function form is y equals ax plus b. I'm going to write that in for you so you have it back at function form. Y equals ax plus b. Take those additional notes. So you're going to solve for y in function form so it looks exactly like that. Y equals ax plus b. I'll be looking for that function form note in your note-taking guide. Okay. Example 1. Oops, sorry. Checking solutions. Tell whether 5 comma negative 1 is a solution of x minus 3y equals 8. 5 is your x coordinate and negative 1 is your y coordinate. All you have to do is place those values into x, which is 5. Bring down the minus 3, and for y, put in negative 1. Now check. If I multiply these two together, negative 3 minus 3 is positive 3. So 5 plus positive 3 is 8. It works out. Remember to multiply first, and technically this is subtracting 3, which is adding a negative. So negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3, right here. This became adding. 5 is 8. So it equals. That means that ordered pair 5 comma negative 1 is a solution. That's all you have to write, yes or no. In this case it would be yes, it's a solution. Go ahead and try these 3 problems. Remember to pause this video so that you can work out these problems by yourself. You are inputting the ordered pair into the equation. So 0 goes into x, negative 5 goes into y. When you plug in 0 for the x, you get 2 times 0 is 0, minus negative 5, this is a yes, because minus negative 5 becomes a positive 5. So that is a yes. 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 minus 2 is not 5. That's a no for number 2. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 minus negative 9. So you're subtracting negative 9, which then makes 5. You have negative 4 minus negative 9. Example 2. You first need to graph y equals negative x plus 1. Make a table of solutions. They told you what the x values are. Negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. If they do not tell you what the table of solutions are, you want to put the x values as negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. We will always use these 5 values because it's a nice graph. It's 2 negatives, it's 0 in the middle, and it's 2 positives. So one more time, if they don't ever tell you what the x values are, you get to pick the x values. And the x values you should pick are these 5 right here. Now I'm going to plug the first x, negative 2, into the x up at the top. So negative, negative 2, think about it, 2 negatives, becomes positive 2 plus 1 is 3. Do negative 1. I know I just showed you all the answers, but please continue to follow along. Negative 1 into negative, so negative, negative 1 plus 1 is 2. 0 plus 1 is 1. Negative, positive 1, so it's negative 1 plus 1 is 0. 2, which is now negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. We go ahead and we graph these dots on the coordinate plane. And here are the ordered pairs, which we talked about in 8.1. Graph the ordered pairs and note that the points lie on a line. That's the whole point of this. It's a linear equation. It's going to form a line. Draw the line through the points. I would take a ruler, my calculator's edge, a straight line of some sort so I can make a nice line all the way through the points. Next, we're going to graph y equals negative 2. When you graph just y equals negative 2, go on the y-axis, and I know I don't have a graph here, but if you go on your y-axis, go down to negative 2 and put a dot. Next, you're going to draw a horizontal line through 0, negative 2 point. What this is telling you that when it's y equals negative 2, your x values can be anything. Your x values can be 0, your x value can be 1, your x's can be 2, but the y is always going to be negative 2. It is a horizontal line. You will need to know horizontal is when it's y equals any single number, just a single number, it's horizontal. For part B, x equals 3. So go on the x-axis, go to the number 3, and put a dot. This time, draw a vertical line, and this vertical line represents that x is always going to be 3, and your y can be any number. So, when y equals any number, it's horizontal. When x equals any number, it's vertical. Example 4. This is our last example, then we have a checkpoint. We need to write 3x minus y equals 2 in function form, and then graph the equation. To write the equation in function form, you need to solve for y. Well, if you look at our equation, we have, on the side of y, we have 3x and then a minus y. Technically, minus y means there's a negative 1 out front. First thing you need to do is move that 3x to the other side of the problem. How do you do that? You can see it tells us subtract 3x from both sides. You end up with negative y, which is negative 1, and negative 3x on the other side. How did I move the 3x? I subtracted it, because then I got 3x minus 3x is 0. If at any point you get confused, put a question mark, write down whatever questions you have, and I can answer them at a later date. Next, this is not a positive y. I now need to get rid of the negative. How do you get rid of negative 1 that is being multiplied to y? Think about the inverse of multiplying by negative 1. You should have said you divide each side by negative 1. I know they say multiplying there, but you are technically actually supposed to be dividing by negative 1. Either way, you'll end up with positive y. The negative 3x becomes a positive 3x, and the positive 2 becomes a negative 2, or you're subtracting now. This is function form. There will not be a single answer. Your answer will be y equals 3x minus 2. Function form is y equals ax, a is 3, plus b, and b is negative 2. Now we can graph. You can see the x values they give us are negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. So where the x is, right next to 3, put in negative 1. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. Minus 2, we'll get negative 5. 3 times 0 is 0. Minus 2 is negative 2. 3 times 1 is 3. Minus 2 is 1. 3 times 2 is 6. Minus 2 is 4. Again, take a moment, look back, and figure out how did I end up with these y values. You now can graph. You have ordered pairs negative 1, comma, negative 5, 0, comma, negative 2, 1, comma, 1, and 2, comma, 4. It should form a line. If you write an equation in function form, it should form a line. If it's not forming a line, something happened. Double check your work. Checkpoint. Again, pause the video and try this yourself. Remember, if it's a function, a vertical line test will only go through one point. You can see y equals 4 is the horizontal line. And if I make a vertical line, it's going to be a function because only one point goes through it. X equals negative 3, well, it is a vertical line. And vertical lines are not functions. So this is not a function. Number 5, the first thing you have to do is write the equation in function form. That means you need to solve for y. You have an x and a minus 2, which change it to adding a negative. It's now negative 2. The first thing we want to move is the x term. You need to get x to the side with the 4. How do I move a positive x? Subtract x. You now have negative 2y on the left and 4 plus negative x, which can be negative 1x, on the right side. How do you move the negative 2, the coefficient? Divide by negative 2. Remember to divide by everything, including the 4, including the negative x. You end up with y equals 1/2 x minus 2. Graph this. Pick x values, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. So you have to make a chart and graph. Find the corresponding y's. Your graph, when you draw a line through it, should look like this. Remember, if you did not get this same graph, you did not pick x values. You have to make the table. There is no shortcut.